So thank you for inviting me, and I'm going to go through a quick whistle-stop tour of our research. I presented some of our research at the last symposium, so I talked more about the first part of it. So today I'm going to talk more about the solutions. And again, we collaborated with a number of different organisations to bring this together, which I will talk a little bit more about. So the aim of the study was to understand the experiences of racism and the effects on mental well-being. So what we wanted to understand was, what the problem was in the first place, what the impact it was on the people that it affected, and what the solutions were. So the main part of the paper was the impact, and we wanted to understand the impact. Because again, when people face discrimination or prejudice, how do you describe it? Actually, how does it make you feel? Because we know there is a correlation between the negative effects of mental health and prejudice and discrimination, but it's quite difficult to actually vocalize that. So we wanted to try and understand that and get that from people. So we had around 300 odd respondents, of which once we started looking at the responses, we started to realize the difficulty with terminology. So we use the terminology Black, Asian, and minority ethnic. And when you include that many people, what does that mean? And again, we know race is a social construct. So again, the definition of those things can vary between people. And what we really wanted to do was understand the effect of racism and its impact on people of colour. And so we didn't use that when we first put out the question, and that was something that maybe we could improve on going forward if we had to do this again. It was online, so people could do it. A majority of people who did it were vets or vet students, but we also had nurses, receptionists, academics, and support staff do the study. So in the end, we had 265 respondents, and it was both closed questions and open text questions. Just want to talk about our project team. So this was our project team. So we tried to meet regularly. So once we released the report, the survey, it was open for about 3 months. Then we closed it, and then we worked about how do we code all that information and therefore make it into something that we could understand. So we coded it and we tried to understand it. What do all those responses and those feelings mean? How does it impact those people? And what we did is we came up with 3 different effects, and then identity conflict ran through the middle. So homogenization, inferiorization was all about being objectified and de-individualized. Alienation and insecurity was all about feeling excluded. Disappointment and futility was all about low satisfaction. And the identity conflict was someone's feeling of their own identity and what white people perceived that to be. So no matter how they felt, you were always feeling how somebody else made you feel. So and I explained more of that last time, and again, I can talk about that later. But today, what I want to do is talk about when people talked about their experiences, what solutions did they come up with? And we talked earlier about lived experiences. And again, solutions have to include the people that have those lived experiences. So there are 7 lived experiences. So after everyone's responses, what we tried to do is to categorize them. So I'm going to go through each major category and then talk about the major parts that people talked about. But again, that could be broken down even further. So the first thing was increased diversity and inclusivity in the veterinary profession at all levels and in all areas of work, especially leadership roles and at universities and veterinary schools. So people talked about encouraging more BAME people to apply to vet school, making the profession more financially accessible, prevent biases and discriminations in hiring, set targets and goals, and try and change the views of minority ethnic people about the veterinary profession. The second one was ensuring BAME students and staff are better represented in the veterinary sector. So the main focus was leadership, so make sure there's fair representation of BAME people in leadership, promote and platform BAME individuals in the public sphere. So we talk about social media, we talk about prospectuses, and other things. The third one that people talked about was raising awareness and educating white people about diversity, racism, and allyship. So supporting white people's learning about racism in a non-judgmental way, educating white people on racism, challenging white people about racism and about misconception about BAME people, and raising awareness about allyship. The fourth thing was tackling racism in universities and vet schools. So providing support for BAME students, providing support on EMS, to diversify teaching it and making it culturally and racially appropriate, providing more training to university staff regarding ED&I, tackling racism appropriately, and I think it's the support mechanisms and the policies as well when people do report racism, which was severely lacking, and working to fight stereotypes. The fifth one was raising awareness of issues, so tackling racism in veterinary practice, so raising the awareness of issues that BAME staff face when working, supporting BAME employees, especially in leadership, and having a zero-tolerance approach to racism. The fifth one was tackling racism more generally in the veterinary profession. So putting more actions and developing policies for EDI and against racism. People have got to look in themselves rather than looking out all the time. So walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Becoming anti-racist, just not racist, is not enough. So working and creating positive actions. We need to increase conversations about racism, and that's what people felt wasn't happening. And creating better support mechanisms. So we have allyship groups, and we have, even within the vet schools, animal aspirations and other things going on. But is that enough? Do they have enough support? And are they supported as well? Rather than putting all the action and all the focus on the people who experience racism to do the work, other people getting involved. People felt we need to conduct more research on diversity and racism in the veterinary sector. So when we did our study in 2021, there wasn't a study like it. There were small studies done for example, at the RVC, they did a student study. And this was the first landmark study where we looked at the whole sector. And again, we still could do more. And if we had more time and more people and more finances, we should do more. So again, what people want to see is look at the positive effects of diversity and celebrate that, and also look at the negative effects of racism and how that impacts our sector. The final thing is people wanted to have more education and create more actions to do with regards to diversity, to racism, and to am I going down? Oh, sugar, sorry. Tackling racism, so more education and more action going forward. So again, and an action, it means putting resources behind it, putting people behind it, and putting finance behind it. Because again, getting someone to add on to their job is not enough. What we need to do is take away some of that workload and give them a proper role in supporting and fighting racism. So I know it's quite quick, and we can go into more detail, but I want to summarize really what we found. So the first thing is racism is a problem in the veterinary sector. Some people will say, well, I don't see it, I don't hear it, we don't have a problem in our practice. But, because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I think we need to just say, yes, it exists, this is enough. We don't need to do more studies to prove racism exists. What we need to do now is work on how do we counteract racism. Racism does have effect on mental well-being. So, we do talk about mental health, and we do talk about, improving our mental health, but we've got to talk about the impacts of prejudice. And actually, not just racism, it could be sexism, it could be homophobia, but any form of prejudice or discrimination has an impact on your well-being. And we talked earlier about those types of different impacts it does have on those people it affects. Not enough is being done currently, and it's being done by the people that it impacts. So again, it's about taking individual responsibility, sector responsibility, positive leadership to try and do more and create those spaces and time to fight it and to improve it. And it's a responsibility of everyone. It's not for someone else to do. Everyone, as an individual, it doesn't matter what position you are or where you are in the sector, you can all make a positive impact to become anti-racist, and it is a journey. It starts at being aware and then going on to educating oneself and then trying to make little actions that can all add up. And if we all did that, we could make a big difference. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Steve. And if everyone would like to join me in thanking Steve. So we have time for some questions. Any questions in the room? Yes, in the middle.
Thank you for that. That's really interesting. I just wondered if you found any specific sectors or areas where racism was more of a problem than others.
So I think racism is a problem throughout. I think there isn't anywhere worse or anywhere less. I think some places might be more visible. So, for example, farm practice is probably more visible. When you talk about EMS, it's probably when vets go and see equine or farm practice, farm placement, where it's more visible. But it is still a big problem in the small animal sector, in academia. So when tackling racism, rather than just finding areas where it's worse, if we could create a sector-wide effort and include everybody, then I think that will improve everything.
Thank you.
James, behind you.
Cheers. Thanks for that, Thee. Really interesting work. And I'm just thinking, and I'm asking this question from a position of ignorance, so I hope you forgive me, but thinking about my role at the university, I wear on my lanyard there my BV LGBTQ plus ally colours. I'm proud to wear those at university. But I'm not aware of a similar sort of visual display of being an ally that exists for race. Is there one? And if not, might we explore one?
So allyship can take lots of different ways. So, you can be visible and show, I don't know, different colours or anything like that. But I think it's the real actions behind it that's more important. And actually, like it's Black History Month this month. How visible has that been? It was South Asian Cultural Heritage Month in July. What did we see? So there are opportunities to start the journey, but allyship shouldn't just be restricted to 1 month or 1 day. It should be something that we work. So again, I think highlighting positive actions and highlighting positive impacts regularly is probably more powerful, but also using those opportunities to maybe kickstart something or to highlight the things that you are doing could be possible. So again, these things happen every year, and maybe next year thinking, well, if that's going to happen, what can we do now to have a positive impact then?